All right, so this is Adventure Company Gaming. We got Ryan, Alex, and Rob joining me. We're gonna be talking some Blitz today. Um, let's start with some intros. We'll start with Ryan. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I got into Flesh and Blood. I would say it was at the beginning of 2020, around when I first started playing. I think actually no, wasn't it towards the end of 2019 when you first introduced it to me, EJ?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so pre arcane, very pre arcane days when the structure decks were the only thing we had to work with at the start. But I've been in it for a long time now. And definitely what's kept me going is the inclusion of all the rest of the community that we brought in, and the game itself is just, I mean, we play it because it's good and because it's great. So, um, and yeah, my first class was Brutes. I branched out into classes like Rune Chant and Ranger, but I usually go back to Brute when it comes to events like Blitz and some other formats that where he just feels more powerful.
Awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
Alex, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Uh, my name's Alex. I was introduced to the game by you, uh, probably a little before summer of last year. I think it was like a quid per quo type situation. You came over to my house and said, "Hey, let's play this game," and I was like, "I'll play the game under the condition that you play some Legacy with me, some Magic."
That was
And
a fun day.
yeah, so we played a couple of games both ways. The first hero that I was introduced to was Katsu, and I think I immediately started liking Katsu. So that's been my main champ. Um, so I've played Katsu, I've played Dorinthia, and I've played Dash quite a bit, and then I've also dabbled a little bit in Wizard. What's kept my attention into the game is the coming from the Magic world, like the lack, or let me not say lack. So I think one of the big problems, there's two big problems that I see in Magic. One is the resources, which are lands. So when you're playing a game of Magic, the two things that suck is you either get resource flooded or resource starved.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the things that you really love about Magic is where you have these really back and forth type games. So what's really kept my attention about Flesh and Blood is that every game you have the resources to do the things you want to do for the most part, and you have these really interactive turns between both players, regardless of which heroes you're playing or what archetype you're playing. So I think that's what's kept my attention about the game, and it's fun. The art's great, and the community that we've built is also really amazing.
Yeah, the community's been wonderful. And yeah,
Yeah,
like
for
those
sure.
back and forth games are I mean, you can't get a game of Flesh and Blood in without going back and forth. I mean, that's like the name of the game, right? So, all right, Rob, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Just yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I like Alex. I played Magic for a long time, more so like in my younger years. Um, played some competitive stuff. Some I would go to Friday Night Magic, stuff like that all the time. And then life happened, and I kind of just got away from Magic. Uh, maybe like I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, I got back into it. Started playing some more. So and then lead up into I was playing like stuff like Commander, some Standard, and then Flesh and Blood came along. I was a Patreon of Rudy's,
Yeah, I got into
and
that, got in on that too.
yeah, I mean, I didn't buy anything really, and I wish I would have, but like everybody else. But, um,
Yeah, those first boxes were
yeah,
value.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how like I heard about the game really. I just I was watching YouTube videos one day, and I had seen like a video or two once before, and I just kind of passed by it. But this time, I watched it, and then just started looking over some things, checking out the game, watching some YouTube videos, and I reached out to Matt. He's one of the guys that runs the Flesh and Blood stuff locally at one of the LGSs that we play at on Tuesday called Cloak and Blaster, which is pretty cool. So I went over there, reached out to him, and he was like, "Yeah, man, come on down. I'll show you how to play." And that was it, man. Went over there, played a couple, like not even a full game, just a couple turns of the Ira
Yeah,
decks,
yeah,
and I was hooked.
it's great.
I think like what Alex was saying is, it capitalizes on everything that like Magic or I can't really speak on too many other card games. But especially that Magic like lacks in like resources and either you're flooded with lands or you're not, so um I love the game, it's really good. And yeah, I'm just excited for the future, man. I love playing with you guys. The community's been great. You guys have definitely accepted me. I was up in Jacksonville for my brother's wedding, and I happened to join the Discord, and I think it was either you, AJ, or Alex. I can't remember who, but one of y'all reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we play at the Collective," and I was like, "Oh, sweet." So showed up, and I've been trying to come every Sunday since. So
I think that was Alex. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome though.
yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit about myself.
awesome. Well, thanks for that, guys. All right, so we're gonna jump into our main topic straight away. We're gonna talk about a lot of Blitz today. So I kind of want to get your overall feelings. Like, what are your pros and cons of Blitz? We're kind of just gonna do this, like, just jump in however you guys see fit. So, what strong feelings do you guys have about Blitz? I am on the record of saying, like, I'm not a big fan of Blitz. I really do think it's a good onboarding tool for new players. Um, but other than that, I think it's a really fast format, so it leads to a lot of aggro decks kind of dominating the format. Um, but that's my feelings on it. So, what do you guys think?
Personally, I kind of like it just for the fact that it introduces two different things than two differences than what you normally see in a constructed deck. One is that you can kind of see when you have a more narrow focus deck, you can kind of see the plays, combos, or even cards that you just want to see in a certain playstyle a little more often than you would on a constructed deck. So when I want to play a deck that's more hyper aggressive, I feel like I see the hyper aggressive cards I want to see a little more often than I would in a constructed deck. Two is the difference in equipments. Like you can see people using equipment that's not just always like the tunic or some of their like class legendary equipments, because in a quicker format, having just one turn where you have a really good turnaround or press the advantage in a big way is more important than like the long game or long term benefits of some of the other equipment that you normally see. So like I've
I
been
like that
using
point.
in the like it's like I use the heart and cross wrap instead of tunic in my past couple tournaments or in these past few tournaments we've done. I feel like it impacts my game more that one turn I use it more than waiting for tunic to build up to two charges, which is the equivalent that you'd have with it.
Yeah, I think the faster format definitely lets you get some of the, like, Courage of Bladehold seeds almost no play in constructed, right? But
Yeah.
you get to see it in Blitz, right? Which is kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of what a lot of those Crucible War armors were made for. I think. I think they had a lot of Blitz in mind when they made those Crucible War armors. But yeah, definitely you get to see more variety in equipment for sure.
I think I'll jump in. So I'll do the pros and cons, I think. So let me start with my opinions on the pros. Um, one big thing that I think we kind of left out is variety of heroes, right? So there's the same amount of classes, but you have, well, actually, there's more classes, but there's more variety of heroes. Now, like, I guess we'll talk maybe later about this, but like the viability of all of those variety of heroes might not quite be there, but just the fact that you can choose from a wide array of heroes, I think, is a pro for sure. Um, I do like the fact that they're quick. I think, like you said, it is a good onboarding tool, uh, especially for the fact that when newer players don't quite have the same card pool that some of the more veteran players have, it's easier to, you know, to play. Like I think when our community first started getting off the ground, we were doing a bunch of Blitz events just because people didn't have the 3 copies of the same card that they needed to play
Right.
a constructed deck. So that was interesting. Let's see. Yeah, the pros. I also agree with Ryan on the variety of like weapons or equipment that you can kind of use. And then you also are using cards or strategies that you wouldn't normally use in constructed. And then I guess I'll jump over to the cons now. I think as I'm thinking about the cons, I think there's probably more cons than I could think of than pros, which is kind of funny. Like the classes that I've chosen to play in Blitz are either ninja or wizard, and the first ninja that I chose was Benji, which starts at 17 life. And so
That's like brute
you
kill
probably
range.
Feels bad.
yeah, exactly. You guys know where I'm going with this. Is that like when you guys are talking about this hyper aggressive format, I guess it feels like I felt like I've been in situations where I've played the game really really well. I've done made really good decisions. I've had really good turns, and then you'll have a certain class come and roll a couple dice and just crush your face, which it doesn't feel great because
Right. It
you know
feels like you had
that's
no agency in that
right.
situation, right? Like,
Yeah,
It takes
yeah,
away the
absolutely.
whole pro of the game itself that we were just praising it for, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that one was like a pretty big like sort of negative for me. And then I think like so it's weird because we've had bouts of where we've played a lot of Blitz and then we didn't play a lot of Blitz for a while. So it's like kind of one of those things that uh I feel like it's nice to do it every now and then, but I much more am on the constructed side because the constructed side you really get to use your life as a resource
right.
more so than you do in Blitz. So I think I've landed on. I think it's a fine format. I don't think it's my favorite format.
Right. I think it's like a format where like like you said, we get into like where we play a lot of it. Like we support it because it's a supported format from LSS, and we play it and we like it, and like it's really good for new players too. But I think if I ever had to pick, it's certainly classic constructed all the way.
Oh, 100, hands down, 100%.
And just to add to that point, yeah, it feels like in Blitz, there's just that's one of the downsides that I would have touched on too. It's just having the lower health pool against some very specific classes, obviously, could just mean that in 1 or 2 turns with the right hands, they can just absolutely decimate you before you even have a chance to fully respond, or even respond if you don't have the right cards yourself to, save yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, playing Kano, doing my first turn, whatever, then getting attacked with a command and conquer for 12
Yeah.
on turn 2 is pretty obnoxious. It's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say it reminded me of the time when we first played Blitz using KO versus Kano. Your character only had 15 health, but on the first turn I had a chance to attack. I think I was aiming for 15 damage in one swing because of that. If you didn't have the Gauntlet to defend with and the Tome of Findel to heal up the next turn that you already had prepared,
yeah.
you know what? Even then, it was still oppressive. It's like having to defend for your entire life total on the first turn is disgusting.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I like Blitz, but I agree with what you guys are saying 100%. It's like it's 2 different games. Classic Constructed is more just a long drawn out skillful game in my opinion. Whereas Blitz, I mean, it's a good game and I like it. I'll continue to play it. I just feel like it's it's tough, man. I mean, one good turn, it's
Yeah.
like you're so far behind. It's like whoever gets tempo first, is like, I mean, so I was playing some Dorinthia Blitz, and I was playing some guy on TTS today who's playing Kasai, and he beat me both rounds. But it was like, and it was pretty close all the way down to the end. But I'm just like try to play an aggro Dorinthia deck, and I'm just trying to get over, whatever he's got. Got a couple defense reactions, got a couple. He's just blocking, and he's just going wide. And maybe my deck is like just not good against his, but like one like misplay, even if it's the smallest of misplays, like just doing
It's
something
like
different.
magnified, right? Like
It's 100%. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's like it changes the whole game. It's magnified. Whereas like Classic Constructed, if it's like, well, maybe I should have just saved the glint, glint the Quicksilver for, next turn and not have like gone for that card draw into another swing. It's like you can recover from that. And, playing Dorinthia a lot, I feel like you use your life as a resource. A lot. So it's like, if you cut it in half, you just have less time to really get something going. There's only so many, attacks for, 6 or 7 you can take, and you're
Yeah, I
just
mean,
taking repeated attacks. I mean, I think the format's cool. It definitely seems like Ira, was kind of like dominating, and then I see some Kano in there dominating too. Um, it's hard because I don't think I've played enough of it really to
right.
get a huge grasp of, like, I don't know. It seems like it's just a quicker, more like unforgiving if you make like one little mistake, or if you just choose the wrong line of play to go about, it's over
Yeah,
before you know it.
it actually makes like, and usually like I tell people when they get into Flesh and Blood, I say like bad hands don't really exist. Like, of course a bad hand exists, but like even a bad hand is usually fixed somewhere throughout the game because like the cards are coming in and out of your hand so fast. Whereas like opening a bad hand in Blitz actually feels like opening like bad, like as any other card game would, which is kind of like it's a feels bad moment, but we roll with those. But you actually touched on the next point I want to get to. So if you look at the last big Blitz tournament, I think like 5 out of the top 8s are all Ira decks. Not just Ninja, but specifically Ira. So I kind of want to talk about the Blitz meta, kind of like how like piggyback off what we were just talking about. Like, do you think it's solved? Do you think it's just Ira until Monarch, and maybe we get some shake up there, or do you think there's like other maybe things that people haven't figured out yet, or something that you guys may be sleeping on, or something like that?
I I, I think like when this happens in a card game, uh, like when there's a huge portion of the meta playing one specific deck, I think there's always opportunities for there to be some type of counter to that particular deck, right? So I definitely think like if what you're saying is like your question was like, do you think Ira just lasts until Monarch and then we get a shakeup?
Yeah, like a
I
two
think
zero
like
format kind of thing.
yeah, if like I think if Monarch, if we're in a vacuum and Monarch doesn't come out, I think there is a way to build a deck that could potentially deal with the Ira problem. The question is, and this always comes up in, like I said, in other card games, is the deck that can counter the Ira deck still good enough to hold its own against some of the other decks that show up to that event?
Right.
And then
Right.
it's all about to coin the or to use the term that I've heard a lot of commentators use. It's called angle shooting, right? So like if you think the majority of your field is going to be Ira, then show up with that counter Ira deck, and you have a good shot of winning
Right,
the
right.
tournament that day. But if you feel like you're going to show up and then there's not going to be that much Ira, or there's going to be some Ira, but there's going to be a lot of decks that potentially beat your counter strategy to Ira, then then you're kind of in that situation again. It sort of pans out to a very simple, like I'm sorry, a much more complex version of rock paper scissors.
Right. It's
Yeah,
kind of
and
like, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say it could also be that Ira herself, or the way the decks are constructed around her, just simply have at least if not better matchups, then at least more even matchups against other classes rather than having like a few that she definitely loses to, which might be why she's more prevalent, is that she's just consistent that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is true. Like I certainly think that Ira has like a really good matchup against a lot of the decks out there, but I'm certain there is a deck that could be built or made that could like counter her.
I mean, her effect is so simple, right? I mean, it's just plus one
Yeah.
on your
One
second
damage.
attack.
Right.
It's
You
so
would think.
strong.
Yeah, you would think, it's like like you said, it's just simple, but it's like it can't change the game that much, but it sometimes does. I think I think what we're starting to see is like a lot of players like figuring out Kano, and then there was like some like local store tournament recently where a lot of players, a lot of the top decks were Kano. So it sounds like what Alex was saying, where players have figured out this specific deck to beat the control Ira Blitz deck. And it seems like they're all just playing Kano. But then when you play Kano against like, Reinar, for instance, we ran a
Yeah.
couple of this. It's just, it's just hard. You really, really have to know how to play Kano. And I mean, you have to rip stuff off the top. That's really good. Reinar just like, especially Ryan's build. I mean, he brought this great build, went 6-0 at our local armory event. He had a bunch of blues, bunch of yellows in there, and I don't know if he like really intentionally tried to do that, but if he did, kudos to him, because it was just a really good deck, and it just really like it crushed me when I played Kano. I haven't been playing Kano a lot, and then we went back and played a couple matches after, and it was just like it's just so hard to get over no rune, Arcane Barrier 5.
Right.
It's like trying to jump over a huge wall. But I think with the Ira matchup, I think we're definitely going to start seeing that. We'll probably start seeing it in the Blitz, the calling event coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think they're
that'll
doing
be a
that.
good, yeah, I think that'll be a good like representation of like, where the meta is at, and it'll probably continue to start, to shift, because it seems like a very meta based game, where like, in general, all the heroes are good and you can build great decks with them, but this deck, kind of off subject to Blitz, but like Dorinthia was great, for everyone, was like really doing well. And then like, Matt Rogers, he built that dash deck that just
Yeah.
was intended to beat the Dorinthia deck. And it pretty much does that all the time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, to see if see what comes out there.
What one thing that I think you mentioned without mentioning the meta point, and it was something that I did want to bring up, is I think it's like cyclical. So if you see a bunch of the Ira stuff, you'll see the counters to the Ira, and when the counters to the Ira show up, the counter to the counter of Ira will show up,
Right,
and then
right.
you'll get
Yeah.
into this cycle of, eventually what you have to do, and again, I know, like, not to talk about Magic, but like this is what happens is you have these archetypes. You have like aggro, you have mid-range, you have control, you have like big mana strategies, and then you have like combo. Like you can pretty much put all of Magic decks into one of those categories, and when like one of those categories is doing well, there's a rock for the scissors to beat that, and that's when people will make those angle shot decisions to to go after that stuff. So I think, and whatever. One more thing to say is like, I think there's like kind of two players. There's more than two types of players, but what people will do is they'll either, if they see that the meta is going to be catered towards that, they'll take the angle shot and they'll play the counter deck. Or there's some people that are just like, I know this deck well. I know that I don't have good matchups against this, and I'm just gonna play this regardless because I know the deck so well, and I'm just gonna like try to do my best.
Playoff experience, yeah.
Right. And so, because even if your deck has a bad matchup against another deck, it doesn't mean that you're going to lose the game. And the more you play that matchup, the more you see how you're supposed to handle that. What's difficult in Blitz is you have your 40 cards, and that's what you have to show up with, and that's what you have to play against the entire field.
Right.
Versus in Classic Constructed,
Oh yeah,
you
there's no
have your
sideboard.
sideboard, and you can certainly plan for if there's a deck that I'm weaker against, then I can kind of cover that weakness. Or if there's something that I expect to be out there, then I can bring in some super spicy tech to deal with that as well.
Right, like you can run techs in Blitz, but you're running that tech in every matchup, which may or
Correct.
may not be like the play, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
You got to really
Yeah.
commit.
yeah.
Yeah, the player that I think the player that knows that what you just said the most is the one that includes lots of defense reactions for the Dorinthia matchup and then sits across from the Kano player and they just
Yeah.
feel not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah,
bringing all those red defense reactions and you sit across from Kano, you're like, oh, well, this is gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, it definitely hurts. I definitely know what Alex is talking about. Just building, like, for instance, for me, I played Dorinthia a lot in Classic Constructed, and I brought her to the Blitz table just because I know how to play the deck. It's like I might not play something that may really be good in Blitz, but I'm gonna resort to something that I know I know how the deck runs and can play.
Yeah, for sure.
That helps.
All right.
And
mean,
getting back,
Oh,
and
go ahead.
getting back to the point real quick. So
Yeah.
when we talk about what could be the counter, like, do you see any conceivable, or does anyone here at least see any conceivable counter, quote unquote, to the Ivor deck, or does it just depend on how it's played? Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the type of Ivor deck that's seeing play in the top tables in these Blitz events is more of a close to a control style variant, correct?
Yeah, it's control. Yeah, I think what I like I said earlier, people have done this Kano deck, and that's like the counter to it. And I haven't had any luck playing it, but just because I'm not the best wizard player ever.
Right, right.
But I mean, it seems like that a recent local tournament, like I said, top 8, I think maybe had one Ira in it, and then there was probably like 3 or 4 Kanos at the very top spots.
Ryan, you're the local Chad deck builder, so I think that question you need to ask is posed to yourself.
Yeah, how would
Well,
you
I mean, to
handle
be
Ira?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I've never tried her out myself to kind of get a feel for how she plays, but I mean, in Blitz in general, the way I see playing against Kano slash control or stall style variants is why I felt comfortable playing Brute before, because
Right.
control or stall style variants don't really matter much against Brute when he just slaps your hand out for the turn and make it so you don't get to choose or even defend with any cards that you have there, and then retaliate with whatever you have left, which could be just defense reactions if you're playing that way.
I think Ryan's
Uh,
honestly like counterplay. What's that? I just intimidate their hand away and hit them in the
Yeah.
face. Like,
Hey man, whatever works.
It worked for him.
To be fair, even before the arcane stuff, when we were looking into how the decks were doing, and Katsu stall or Katsu control was like one of the top decks at the time at these national events. Blitz or Reinar was always talked about as being one of his hardest matchups, but low on the tier list for something to worry about because of how bad he played against the other 2 matchups that would be going to the tournaments. So Katsu's stall back in the day had a counter. It was just so little seen at the top tables because of all the other matchups it had to go through that it didn't have to worry about them at all. So that's just my perspective on control and stall based on kind of how it was back in the day and just on how, I mean, how Intimidate works against a player trying to defend for the turn. Yeah, that's just how I see it for Ira.
okay, so I kind of want to pivot a little bit. So we're still talking about Blitz, but I kind of want to pivot into what decks do you think are sleepers in Blitz?
Oh man, I think Kasai is a sleeper. I mean, I got smoked by Kasai, twice today, and in a matchup, and it was just, I know you and I have played a couple games, AJ, but I mean, it's just like I wasn't prepared for like how wide it goes. It just goes
Yeah.
wide, and then it's like, you flock turn one, or maybe not turn one, but first play flock. It's like I'm playing an aggro Dorinthia deck. I'm just taking it. I'm
Right,
I'm
right.
just taking it, and then he razors on top, and then he's going again. A bunch of times swinging with these Centauri sabers, and I think maybe that might be a sleeper. I think we might see more Reinar, especially if like Kano turns into like the counter to Ira. I mean, Reinar just seems pretty good because it can kind of deal with both Ira and Kano. I feel like it just smashes house on Kano. You know what I mean? So
I
if
will
that,
say, I will say on that note, I feel better playing Rhinar in Blitz far more than I feel about playing him in Classic Constructed, just because of how I feel like when those turns where I actually get those intimidates off, it matters more in Blitz, whereas in Constructed, like at the higher health levels, they just have a full hand to retaliate with more lasting effects than just flat out damage usually.
yeah.
So, um, but and then the other class that I think, based on how he played last week when I saw it, was Runeblade. Runeblade, I feel, has a pretty
Oh
good
yeah.
Oh yeah.
those turns where you build rune chants, and then try and use the Skeleton for that one big play. That one big play can, depending on how well you've been building rune chants in the turns leading up to it, can bring an opponent down from like full health or even more than full health down to like their last health, basically,
Can definitely
if
Yep.
chunk
even
them.
that.
Yeah. It's that one turn kill, Rune Blade. I mean, yeah, recently, locals, I had to play Rune Blade twice, and that was a hard matchup, man. I would say that was one of the hardest matchups, just because you have to survive that big swing turn, like you said.
Right.
If you could survive that, and get your opponent to somewhat do it earlier than later, and survive it, I think you're in goodish to okay shape. But the longer the game goes on, it just trying to deal with rune chants and the odd like numbers they are, whether it be two or three, and then deal with like an attack that's like two or four or three. It's just odd numbers. So you have to really think about your blocks and what you're pitching for to stop those, stop the damage, because it's like, if he pops three and then you're stuck with a yellow in hand or two yellows in hand, both block for three, you can only pitch, so you're just taking damage from either side. So that might be a sleeper for sure, that Viscerai deck.
Yeah, especially against decks like Warrior or other decks that play a lot of reds, it makes it hard for them to even defend the rune chants in the first place. So those turns after you've built up, like, let's say even just 10, they could only maybe feasibly defend 3 of those comfortably and take a good 7 chunk before they even get to the physical damage. So,
I think
Yeah.
I would actually throw in the ring an aggressive Azalea build. Could actually be pretty nuts in
Oh
Blitz.
yeah.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about is like just, I mean, if you go against an Ira, right, and you get red in the ledger to hit just once, you could basically buy a turn on Ira. I mean,
Right.
so I just think like a good Azalea deck, maybe that's where she shines in is in Blitz and less in Constructed. That's kind of my sleeper pick.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I feel like Azalea, the problem with Azalea and Constructed is that over time, the course of the game and length, as it goes on, she just runs out of effective arrows.
Yeah.
So when in Blitz, you just, yeah, you might have one less of each arrow, but it's a quicker game, and you're just looking, you're going to get arrows, and you're just looking to, like you said, do an aggro build and get them out. So that could definitely be something for sure.
Yeah, 20 is a much more attainable target than 40 as a, like
Yeah.
versus those two numbers. Yeah.
Not to mention, she also has the ability to dominate her attacks more consistently than
Yeah.
other classes. As long as she can get or continue opting with her Skullbone Cross Wrap, then you can feasibly dominate an arrow every turn. And so long as it gets in for the 1 damage, whatever on hit effect it has, it goes. That's all it needs.
Right. I mean, increase the tension into an Azalead into Arsenal Remorseless. I mean, that's a game ender. Like, it's dominated and you can't play any defense reactions. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Disgusting.
Alex, did you have any sleeper picks in Blitz?
Nah.
Nah. All right.
He knows.
I mean,
he
you
knows
guys-
where it's at.
You guys covered them all. I think like not even a sleeper pick. It's just like so when the first Blitzathon happened, I was a little annoyed because they rolled out that straw poll on Google to say like, oh, how many wins do you think are gonna happen and what champion do you think is gonna take it? And I chose KO, man, because I played against Ryan enough to know how absurd rolling sixes on his attacks are, and I was just so frustrated that like I don't know, I don't even remember seeing it, or I forget if they even brought it out. Did they? I don't think they did.
I don't think so. Ryan, you were trying to see it too, right? And I don't think they ever did bring out KO.
I don't think they brought out KO at all. Really, oddly enough, they released a KO spotlight like recently on the official Flesh and Blood channel, but
Mhm.
when it came to the other one, no, they never played KO.
Yeah, so that kind of frustrated me, but like again, it's one of those, do I have hot hands on my dice type deck,
Right.
and I don't think if you take that match over 1,000, over 10,000 matches, does it hold up? Then probably not, because you're talking about rolling dice, and that's like so
But-
much more variance than
Right.
if you look at Ira that has like Ryan is saying, like it just has a good matchup against a whole bunch of the field, and it's just consistent at what it does. I've played Ira quite a bit, and I've also either sat across from Rob playing Ira, or I've just stood behind him while he's played Ira, and he gets these fire hands, and I just see what Ira does, and I'm just like, man, that's like so absurd. So, I guess I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a shout out to Kaio because I think, if you like rolling dice and you like punching for, 12 with a card that should only do 6 damage, then
with a pummel on top.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean that's what
God.
not even right. Like even if you don't have the pummel, blocking 12 damage is all 4 cards in your hand with no equipment. Like if you have all 3 blocks and no defense reactions, it's just crazy. Like
Right. It's even crazier because it works on any 6 attack card. So like
Mhm.
Command and Conquer, why? Like
Yeah,
Command and
it's
Conquer with
crazy.
12 is filthy. Like
yep.
The only one where that actually matters, like Command and Conquer having the built-in no defense reactions effect, that's the only time where it feels especially disgusting. Like disgusting for 12 still. Like even a drone at 12 damage. is
Drone's
pretty
great.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Drone.
But with the extra no defense reactions and destroys your arsenal if it hits, it feels especially dirty. But
Yeah.
on that note,
I have nightmares about that happening. It's happened to me several times, and I just still have nightmares about it.
funny enough, I decided not to play KO though when we had that tournament where I did play Rhinar as the aggressive build, just because I felt like not even just for the Alpha Rampage, but just having all those extra intimidates off of discarding for cheap cost attacks, it just felt so much more consistent and powerful than trying to get those 5 or 6 dice rolls.
Yeah.
Obviously, but there is something that can attract a person to trying it out, or just for when those few times do happen, it just feels so good.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And that's why I said, like, if you take that match in a vacuum over the course of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 games, like, it's not gonna stand up, but it's
I mean,
still
not
pretty
even that
hilarious.
many, right? Just over the course of like let's say a larger size tournament, like a 9-round tournament.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
too.
like-
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many of those rounds are you gonna lose just because your rolls were terrible? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, your Command and Conquer is trying to come in and deal 3 damage? Sure. Whatever.
Right.
You know what's scary about that though? What kind of sucks about that is you still have to block it, right? Like most times you're still looking at the Command and Conquer for 3, and you're like, it still gets a card out of my hand. Otherwise, I lose my arsenal. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Command and Conquer is just so good. It's great in like almost every deck, that's played, and it's just, on both formats. It's a really good card.
I will say that in order to, after I played KO initially, I tried to make a compensation build that played pummels more consistently to try and like, oh, let's say I rolled half and I was only doing 3 damage and they only want to block 1 card. Hopefully, if I have enough resources left in hand or the cards or the proper cards in hand, I could at least bait out to go ahead and throw an extra pummel on top to make something out of this half-ass dice roll.
that's everything today, and thanks for watching, guys. This is Adventure Company Gaming. Let's go around the table and just talk about what everyone's got going on. And go ahead, Ryan. What you got going on?
Well, in addition to working more on the channel here, we've got another video coming up on Sunday. I don't know when this podcast is going to release itself, but another good video coming out on Sunday from our recent, what was it called? Draft event,
Mm-hmm.
which is always a lot of fun. I think draft is probably one of my favorite formats now that I've had a chance to try it. I didn't I didn't play any card games before that I actually played it, so I was happy to give that a try with this game. But other than that, just working on things with the channel, just trying to make some new interesting decks with some lesser played champions or heroes. I think I'm going to be working on Ranger next. That seems to be a fun class to try and pick apart or try and master, because compared to the other classes, it certainly has its problems without or without some consistent damage from something like a weapon or something that isn't an attack action that makes it worth trying out. So that's what I got going on there.
Awesome. Alex, what you got going on?
Well, I am, playing games. I'm just honestly trying to grow the community. I've been putting a lot of work into getting our events scheduled, wrangling the store owners, and getting our stuff in the store to make sure that we that we have the support that we need. Thankfully, the folks over at the collective have been more than accommodating and have been really great hosts, and kind of letting us run this stuff and grow our community. And so, along with what Rob's going to talk about next, Tolarian dropouts, and with Adventure Company Gaming, I think my time is pretty taken up.
Being pulled in all different directions for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
which I'm happy about it. I mean, I certainly like the game a lot. Have done my damnedest to do as much research as I can on the decks that I'm interested in, and also try to be as knowledgeable as I can about the decks that I'm not interested in playing, but will definitely see in the tournament rounds. So that's kind of what's got my attention right now. Certainly excited about Monarch upcoming too.
oh yeah. Oh, we'll have a video out for Monarch for sure. We'll have another discussion like this.
First time another what's it called? Spoiler drops or something?
Oh yeah, that'd be sick.
All right,
Oh,
Rob,
I
what you
can't
got
wait.
going on, man?
Yeah, so I just been just been playing a lot, playing with you guys, just trying to play as much as possible. Just been trying to play some TTS. Got some equipment set up so I could play some TTS finally. We've talked about, like we've set up like our competitive fab team, if you will. We've named it Tolarian Dropouts. You're looking at 4 guys that are on the team. So we want to get better and stuff at the game. I think me personally, I want to try to get some like streamed TTS games in, which would be kind of cool. I mean, it's just something I wish I could watch. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the calling and seeing if we can get some kind of like gameplay or something, watching that, seeing when that happened, what's going on with that this weekend. in New Zealand, so that would be pretty exciting following along with that. Yeah, I mean that's just love the game, man. Just want to keep playing.
Yeah, dude, just play more. We gotta get more people in to play the game. And I mean, I
Yeah,
know all this collectability talk, all this financial talk. Just play the game, man. The game is so good. So,
so good.
so
Best
good.
I
game
was
I've
gonna
ever played.
And I was going to say an extra shout out to the collective for helping us with that too, because they've been taking little things here and there to try and spread word in the community or talk about the game to new players who notice some merchandise we have in the shop to let them know about the new game we have, even when we're not there. And then allowing us to go ahead and build like some little structure decks or little things for people who want to try out the game and helping host that part of the community or hosting that what's the word I'm looking for? Hosting those materials at their shop in a way that makes it so it's easier to get the word out and get people interested in the game.
Yeah,
So big shout out to the collective and everything they've done to help us out here.
yeah, they put on the collective like materials to get the game out there. I mean, there's a big sign on the front of the door, and then the first thing it says is Sunday, Flesh and Blood.
That's right. Yeah.
From 1 to whatever, 1 to 5, 1 to 6 or something. And I mean that's pretty huge. I mean I mean that's like on the hours of
Operation.
organized play. Yeah, I mean it's right there on the door. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, definitely big thanks to Alex for helping set that up, and big thanks to everyone at the collective. They've been nothing but wonderful to us. So great place to play. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So my name's AJ. This has been Adventure Company Gaming. Come back next time. We're gonna have a lot of gameplay for you guys. We're gonna have a lot of videos like this. Leave comments down below what you want to see more of. And thanks everyone for hanging out. Peace.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Peace.